Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Got my cheat sheet for today's MLB main slate for today on DraftKings. Before we continue though, if you could leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my new videos, I would really appreciate that. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you want access to some of the extra content I put out, you can hit the link in the description below for my Patreon, where you can get access to my entire MLB sheet, which I will do a little preview of shortly, in my Slack chat where you can ask me questions all day. I really just hang out. A lot of good guys in there, answer all your questions, put their input as well. So yeah, anyway, let's get into this. And actually, let me say I hope you guys are having a really good night in MLB right now. Hope you guys stacked the Twins. Hope you guys played Nelson Cruz. They got me sitting in 5th place right now in a tournament, so hopefully for a good finish, hopefully I can get up near the top. So fingers crossed for that. Anyway, let's get into this sheet. So at pitching tomorrow, I got Justin Verlander as my clear spend up. Then some SP2 options would include Joe Musgrove and Drew Smyly. And that might sound a little ugly, but I think they're going to be decent tomorrow. So let's get into the pitching sheet just so you have an example of what this looks like. And it's what I use to put together my cheat sheet every day. So if you like the cheat sheet, this is the more analytical, the backwork of the cheat sheet. So Justin Verlander, I think he's the clear spend up with Shane Bieber being in a tough spot versus the Angels and Syndergaard going against the Pirates who don't strike out a lot to righties. So I think that just leaves Verlander as a clear spend up. And he's just been awesome this season. He's coming off a 44-point outing against the Cleveland Indians, and they had like a 37-point outing, and just if you look at his game logs, it's just 30s, 40s, 20s pretty much. So he's the clear spend up. He's got amazing numbers this season: 3.42 xFIP, 33% K rate, 5% walk rate. I will say he has one blemish, and it is home runs. I believe he's leading the league in home runs. I might have changed last time I looked, but he is giving up some power. As you can see, 41% hard contact rate, 46% fly ball rate, 208 ISO to lefties, 203 ISO to righties. But look at those numbers, the strikeout numbers, I should say. 36% K rate to lefties, 27% K rate to righties. He's just been dominant this season. Going against the Mariners, who just got no hit versus Aaron Sanchez and company. And I told you guys, Aaron Sanchez, he's going to go to the Astros like every other single pitcher, and he did a good game. So I don't know what it is. The Astros just pitching whisperers. So I have no reason to believe Verlander cannot have an outstanding game versus the Mariners. If you look at their splits versus righties, they're not the best. They do have a little bit of power, though, I will say. But they're striking out, if I can get over, there's a lot of splits on here. So they're striking out 25% of the time to righties, have actually a decent amount of power, so it wouldn't surprise me if someone like Daniel Vogelbach went deep on them or something. But I think overall you can get 10 to 12 strikeouts here, have an amazing game, go 7 innings, and get us 30 to 40 points. Not out of the realm of possibility. And then if we want our value guys, I don't mind Joe Musgrove at 6,200. As you can see, he's the 5th lowest priced pitcher, and I don't think that accurately reflects how good of a pitcher he is compared to his price. Now, I'm not saying he's like a really good pitcher, but he's a much better pitcher than 6,200. He honestly should be around 7K. And he's had a string of good games recently. He hasn't been terrible. He's been pretty popular, those slates too, because he just continues to be too cheap. I know he was around 5K the past couple starts, I believe. Now he's up at 6,200, and really he's got just his numbers are much better than what his salary is. He's got 20% K rate. He doesn't walk a lot of guys at 5%. Doesn't allow a ton of fly balls, 36%. Not the best, but he does allow a little bit of hard contact, 40%. But the thing is, he's really good versus righties and not very good versus lefties. And I know that sounds like a little bit of a problem versus guys like Cano, Conforto, McNeil. If I'm not missing anybody. But yeah, other than that, I think he can have a pretty decent game. He's got a 15% carry to lefties, but it goes up to 25% to righties, and only allowing a 168 ISO to righties compared to a 206 ISO to lefties. So I think he can have a decent game here. We really only need 10 to 15 points for him to hit value, and I think he can do that. Now, if you look at the Mets splits versus righties, obviously it's not going to look like the best matchup, but we're really not asking for much at this price tag. They are striking out at a 23% clip, but they do have a decent amount of power, which does give me a little bit of concern. But I do think Musgrove is worth the price tomorrow. And the next guy I want to talk about is Drew Smyly at 6,600. Now, if you look at those numbers, it does not look pretty. 5.69 xFIP, 21% K rate, 12% walk rate. So why do we like this guy? Well, he's been pretty decent the past 2 games, and he gets a friendly matchup versus the Chicago White Sox, who have not been doing anything lately on offense. Aaron Nola, obviously a much better pitcher, just had a really good game versus them. Jason Vargas, which is a more similar pitcher to Drew Smyly. He is better than Drew Smyly, but he had about a 15-point game, if I can remember correctly. So So I do think Smiley is going to carry some ownership, and I do think it's a decent matchup for him. If you look at the splits versus lefties for the White Sox, they are striking out at a 25% clip, only a 152 ISO, and a 96 WRC plus. So I do think this is an okay matchup for him, and I think he is worth that salary. So if we can go Verlander and then pair him up with Drew Smiley or Joe Musgrove, it's going to leave us enough salary to stack up the Twins or another stack that I like today. So that is my views on pitching. Let's get into the batters now. So at catcher, we got Travis d'Arnaud at 4,200 versus Caleb Smith. Now, Caleb Smith is a very good pitcher, but the one thing he does do is give up fly balls and hard contact and a little bit of power. Now, it usually works out for him in Pitcher's Park in Miami, but I don't mind Travis d'Arnaud because of how good he is versus lefties. He's been really good versus them this season, and I do think if you're spending up for catcher, he's the preferred option, although I feel like I want to spend down and spend up on other positions, but I do think he is an option. Then James McCann at 3,900 going up versus Drew Smiley. Now I know I have interest in Drew Smiley, but doesn't mean I don't think he's going to completely lock down this lineup. He's probably going to give up a run or two. I'm just hoping that comes out with plenty of strikeouts. James McCann has been excellent versus lefties in his career and this season, so I don't mind if you want to go with him. Then Mike Zunino at 2,300. Like I always say with this guy, he's either striking out or going deep, and he had a really good game last time out. It might not have been the last time out, but recently, where I believe he had over 20 points. And like I said, Caleb Smith's giving up a lot of power and a lot of hard contact. But the problem is he does strike out a lot of guys. So Mike Zunino is a really boomer bust play here, but he does give us some salary relief. Then at first base, this was a position I was having a little bit of trouble putting together because I really wasn't too many options that stood out versus me. I preferred lefties versus Lopez. But Rhys Hoskins has always been pretty good versus righties, and Lopez is giving up an ISO above 200 to righties. I will say, though, the strikeout rate for him is much better versus righties compared to lefties, where it's around 24%, I believe. So there is he is better versus righties, and he's been pretty decent after the All-Star break, although last game he kind of got beat up just a little bit. And I just like Rhys Hoskins much more than I like Reynaldo Lopez as a pitcher, and I do think that Philly stack is interesting, especially the lefties, but I don't mind Hoskins either. Then Justin Smoke at 4,300. Tom Eshelman is the guy we want lefties against. I obviously don't mind righties either because he's not the best pitcher in the world, and that bullpen is awful. But Justin Smoke's much better hitter from the left side of the plate, and Eshelman is a much worse pitcher to lefties, so this makes a lot of sense to me. And I do think the Blue Jays are a pretty viable stack tomorrow that are pretty affordable too. Then Carlos Santana. Now, I want the righties versus Barria. The problem is we don't have too many to work with. But overall, I think the Indians stack is going to be worth it versus Barria, even the lefties. He is giving up an ISO above 200 to lefties, but it comes with a 34% K rate. But the thing is, these Indians lefties don't strike out a ton anyway, so I am going to give the advantage to the Indians, and I'm a biased Indians fan, so I'm always going to list them on here anyway. And then at second base, we got Jose Altuve at 5,100 versus Tommy Milone. Jose Altuve continues to have some pretty good games. The Astros have been hitting well recently. And Tommy Milone, he gives up a lot of fly balls to righties and gives up a lot of power to righties. So Jose Altuve makes a lot of sense. He's been one of the best players in the league versus left-handed pitching this season. I believe he's tied with JD Martinez with the highest WRC plus versus them. So I like Jose Altuve quite a bit. He's just very expensive. Then Kevon Biggio, 4,400. Should be hitting near the top of the order for the Blue Jays versus Eshelman, and he's a lefty, and he's just been mashing against righties this season. Plus, they're going to see that awful Orioles bullpen, and it's a great hitter's park in Camden Yards. Then, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Luis Arraez, I think that's how you say it. He's only 3,800, and he's a lefty versus Keller. Keller is a low strikeout guy, and he actually has been giving up less power to lefties, but this Twins lineup is going to be able to overpower him, and that bullpen is bad for the Royals too, so I think the Twins eat again. So I don't mind going with Arraez. And then at third base, we got Vlad Guerrero at 4,900. He is very expensive. I remember he used to be in the 3K range, but he's starting to hit the ball really well recently. He's finally finding that stroke, and I like anybody versus Tom Eshelman, righties and lefties. I do prefer the lefties, but Vlad has been hot, so I'm going to ride that hot streak. Then Alex Bregman at 4,800. He should not be cheaper than Vlad, I will say that. And I just love all the righties versus Tommy Milone. Bregman's been elite in his career versus lefties and this season, so I do like Alex Bregman a lot. And then Arraez already talked about. At shortstop, we already talked about Alex Bregman. Jorge Polanco at 4,400. I think he's going to be pretty popular. He's just really cheap part of that twin stack, and he's a much better hitter versus righties. So he makes a lot of sense. He should be batting second versus Keller. Then Bo Bichette at 4,300. I assume he's going to be leading off. He has been the past few games. And I like anybody versus Eshelman in that bad Orioles team, or pitching staff, I should say. Bad really a bad team overall anyway, though. Then in the high-end outfield, we got Max Kepler 5,300 versus Brad Keller. And if you're new to this channel, I play Max Kepler probably more than anybody. If you're not new to the channel, you guys know this. He's in my cheat sheet almost every single day when he's facing a righty, and he just continues to produce. We've been on him ever since he was in that 3K range, and I've just been playing him all year. He's really, really good versus righties. So give me all the Max Kepler I can get. I do have him as a core play. Then Nelson Cruz, he is just on fire. I know he's better versus lefties, but that doesn't mean he's bad versus righties either. He just hit 3 home runs. He's just been mashing the past month recently, so give me all the Nelson Cruz I can get. He's very expensive, but I do think he is worth it. And I will say Keller has been giving up more power to righties this season anyway. Then Corey Dickerson at 4,800. Now, I don't know why he's not in the lineup. He's only gotten 1 pinch hit, I believe. But this is a great matchup for him if he's in the lineup. I would assume he is. I hope he is. It's a good matchup versus Lopez, who struggles versus lefties, and Corey Dickerson's really good versus righties. So I do like Corey Dickerson. Then in the mid-range outfield, we got Eddie Rosario at 4,500. He's another core play for me. He's the light version of Kepler, but he's also really, really good. So I don't hate the idea of just stacking up the Twins outfield if you can afford it. Just a great matchup, and I love the Twins tomorrow. Then Bryce Harper at 4,400 versus Lopez. Like I said, I want the lefties versus Lopez. Then Yasiel Puig at 4,400. He's been really good versus righties this season, and Barria's been really bad versus righties. So it's kind of like a 2 reverse splits. I mean, Puig's fine versus lefties too, but Barria is a really heavy reverse splits guy. Lower strikeout rate to righties, higher ISO to righties. So give me Yasiel Puig tomorrow, part of that Indian stack. Then in the value outfield, we got Marwin Gonzalez at 3,400. He's better versus righties, and he's really cheap, so I don't mind using him. Then Franmil Reyes at 4,100. This is the reverse splits matchup, is what I kind of meant to say with Puig. Reyes has been very, very good versus righties. A lot of power. He does strike out quite a bit, though, but Barria's got a low strikeout rate to righties. More power to righties, so Reyes makes a lot of sense to me. Good part of that Indian stack. And I guess I wouldn't leave off Oscar Mercado either. Then the core plays for me are going to be Justin Verlander up top at 12,000. You're going to be able to afford him with the cheap SP2 options we have. And then in the outfield, I got Eddie Rosario and Max Kepler. Then the top stacks for me are going to be the Twins, the Indians, the Astros, the Blue Jays, and the Phillies, which I think will be a little lower owned. So anyway, guys, that's all I got for the video. I hope it was very helpful to you. Like I said, remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you want access to the extra content, link is in the description below for my Patreon. And I wish you guys the best of luck and have a great Sunday. And if you're playing NASCAR, check out the NASCAR video.